Hey guys, and welcome to round 3 of me answering your questions. So today's question comes to us about chapter length. So if the question can just slide over, come on, slide over.
How long should a chapter be? Many popular books today have relatively short chapters, but many of the older classics have really long ones. Should chapters always end on cliffhangers? Should a book be divided into chapters based on making sure that something important to the story happens in each chapter? If you've already done a video on this, please send it to me, but if not, well, you have your mission.
Great question. So let me first answer the question about cliffhangers, and then we'll move on to that to discuss chapter length. When you end a chapter, you don't need to end it in a cliffhanger per se, but you need to end it in a way that makes the reader want to keep on reading. It doesn't need to be dramatic, but it has to be suspenseful. So let me give some quick examples. So obvious one is one where every chapter ends with some really dangerous situation for the main characters. Something that happened every time in a Hardy Boys book or Nancy Drew book or basically anything else written by Edward Stratemeyer. Stratemeyer? I don't know how to pronounce that name. All that being said, not every chapter has to end like that. An unanswered important question, a premonition of bad things to come, a major revelation, a sudden tragic loss. All these things can be great ways to end a chapter, just as long as the reader wants to keep reading on. Basically, you want to end it in a way so that the reader wants to read more, but it doesn't have to be a life or death situation every time, because that can begin to get a bit old after it's already happened 15 times or so in your book. If you're interested in reading more, I've got some links in the show notes to some different articles we've written about this topic. But let's move on from that to the main question. How long should a chapter be? So I've seen people argue for 5,000 words so that people can get through a chapter in the 20 minutes that they're reading before going to bed. I've also seen people argue for 2,500 words so that people get more of a sense of progress into reading more chapters in the novel because they're shorter. The simple answer, it depends on the story. Each chapter is predominantly a scene, or a thematic thread that's followed through a couple really short scenes. So if there's really long dialogue between two characters, that would be one scene. Although if it tends to run like 40 pages longer, so you may want to consider cutting into 2 different chapters. If the scene is pretty short, then you have a pretty short chapter. In general, it's a good idea to vary chapter length. There's no perfect length for a chapter. And sometimes you'll want a chapter that's only 1 or 2 pages long just to place emphasis on what that chapter is talking about. Bottom line, each chapter in your story has to have a purpose, whether it be to reveal a certain plot point, or have a certain confrontation erupt, or raise an important question. Once you've accomplished that purpose, the chapter is pretty much finished. If you're still looking for ideas, try just grabbing a random book off the shelf and look at how long its chapters are and where it has its chapter breaks. Honestly, one of the best ways to get better as an author is to read and to look for specific things that the writer does really well in that you could replicate. So there we go. If you're interested in reading more, I've got some links to some helpful articles below. Make sure to leave your questions in the comments and we'll answer them in a future video. Until then, talk to you guys next time.